Good morning, I'm Claire Murphy. Welcome to the Solo Bureau. I feel like whenever a story is written about GLP-1 medications like Wegovy or Mounjaro, one name always stands out and is made into some fun portmanteau. So for the sake of a good name mashup, we're calling today's episode Eye-zempic. We are actually checking in on a recent TGA warning about a potential eye disorder that can come from the use of GLP-1s, whether you're using them for weight loss or for type 2 diabetes. But of course, we must check out what's been happening while you were sleeping first. It's Wednesday, July 29. A 7.1 magnitude earthquake has hit Japan's southern Kumamoto prefecture. The quake knocked out power to thousands of homes, cracked open road surfaces, and left people trapped and others presumed dead inside a partially collapsed shopping mall, which, according to local TV station TBS, was also rocked by an explosion. Local broadcaster NHK is reporting that one hospital has taken in 50 injured, while there are media reports of people also injured who were travelling on a high-speed train at the time the quake hit. Japan's meteorological agency is warning residents in those areas that felt the biggest tremors that further strong quakes may occur for the next week, increasing the risk of landslides. Prime Minister Sane Takachi said authorities were still assessing the full extent of the damage in the area, which was also devastated by a deadly quake 10 years ago. Around 300,000 people have been instructed to head to evacuation centres, the Prime Minister promising 3,600 soldiers will help with the disaster recovery. Located on the Ring of Fire of undersea volcanoes and trenches, Japan is one of the world's most earthquake-prone countries, with a tremor occurring at least every 5 minutes. Former Kmart employee Ben Carroll is now Victoria's new Premier.
I am honoured and humbled to have been elected unanimously by my colleagues to serve as the new Premier of Victoria. Yesterday, they asked me to put my hand up to lead our party, and I agreed. This was not an easy decision, but the stakes at this election are too high.
Carroll was officially sworn in as Victoria's 50th Premier yesterday after Jacinta Allen resigned following internal pressure from her colleagues who claimed she'd lost the support of the caucus. Mr Carroll, who worked his way through high school and university at the Airport West Kmart, where he started as a 14-year-old, was an advisor to former Premier Steve Bracks before entering Parliament through a by-election following the retirement of former Deputy Premier Rob Hulls. He was elevated to Cabinet in 2017 as Industry and Employment Minister before transferring into the major portfolios of public transport and road safety. After threatening to nominate for the top job after former Premier Dan Andrews' retirement, he became Deputy Premier in September 2023. The now former Education Minister was in the position in 2024 when an exam error affected 65 VCE examinations and led to the dismissal of the Board of Victoria's Curriculum Authority. He's also failed to secure a new pay deal with Victoria's public school teachers who went on strike just last week. Senator Pauline Hanson's Register of Interest has revealed who paid for her recent trip to Europe. It shows mining magnate Gina Reinhart paid for the flights from London to Sicily via Rome return, Hanson paying for her own accommodation, meals and daily expenses. Reinhart also paid for Hanson's ticket to the Dolce & Gabbana fashion show. When she was questioned on her return to Australia, Senator Hanson didn't explain how the trip was paid for, but insisted that taxpayers had not contributed, saying it didn't cost the taxpayer 1 cent for my trip overseas, not 1 cent. Senator Hanson was also gifted a private plane by Mrs Reinhart back in April. The search for a missing 2-month-old boy off the coast of South Australia will continue this morning, with authorities saying they will leave no stone unturned. The boy is believed to have fallen from the cliff along with his mother and sibling, whose bodies were found in the ocean off of Cape Northumberland in the state's far south on Monday. Emergency crews had to suspend the search yesterday afternoon when the surf conditions became too rough for them to safely continue, experts telling police the baby's survivability is very unlikely. The identity of a highly connected Melbourne man convicted of rape will remain under wraps after his lawyer successfully lobbied to keep his client's details secret. A young woman accused the man of assaulting her at his home in March 2024, a jury yesterday returning guilty verdicts on 2 counts of rape and 1 count of sexual assault. After the verdict, the suppression order was due to expire, but the man's barrister applied for a further interim order, arguing it was necessary to protect his client from an elevated risk of self-harm and suicide. homicide. He argued the man's circumstances were different to convicted rapist Tom Silvani, whose identity was also suppressed throughout his court case and late 2025 trial. Silvani's identity was revealed a week after the guilty verdict in December 2025, when the judge found the risk to his mental health would be reduced while in custody. The man maintains his innocence and is considering an appeal. Australia's Chief Veterinary Officer Beth Cookson has confirmed H5 bird flu in 7 greater crested terns found in South Australia's southeast. One was found at Cape Jaffa, another at Port MacDonnell, the other 5 around Southend Jetty near Beachport. Analysis is continuing on the genetic makeup of the virus to understand exactly how related they are to other detections overseas as well as within Australia, and to work out if these are cases of local transmission. This takes the total number of cases across the country to 27. Items belonging to KFC founder Colonel Harlan Sanders are up for public auction, including his iconic black bow tie. His former Shelbyville home, where he set up the first headquarters of his restaurant business in the late 1950s, along with the dinner house, are also up for grabs. He sold the property in 1974 to Tommy and Cherry Settle, who've run the restaurant ever since. Sanders' personal watches, an original cash register, his cutlery set, a bust sculpted by his daughter, and a commercial gas range from the Colonel's former residence are amongst the items up for bidding. One that competitors might try to get their hands on is the Colonel's personal 1964 planner with a handwritten herbs and spices recipe. The book was later the subject of a lawsuit filed by KFC to keep the contents private. They later dropped it after reviewing the planner and realising the ingredients didn't match the secret blend of 11 herbs and spices, saying it was likely a recipe for stuffing. Sanders sold KFC in 1964 to a group of investors, but continued as the brand ambassador, the character of the Colonel still used as the face of the brand today. Over to Glasgow for a Commonwealth Games update, and the Aussies have scored 2 more gold overnight in the gymnastics, with Brianna Scott winning the balance beam individual apparatus and Jessie Moore scoring a win on parallel bars. Those are your top stories today, folks. On the way, if you are on GLP-1 medication or know someone who is, things like Ozempic, Wegovy, etc., we are checking with a doctor to discuss the upping of the warning from the TGA about an eye disorder that is related to the use of the drug. On the 23rd of July, the TGA updated its warning on the use of GLP-1 medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide, sold here in Australia under the brand names Ozempic, Wegovy, Trulicity, Mounjaro and Saxenda. They did this due to the potential for it to cause a rare but severe form of an eye disorder. The disorder has a very long 5-word name, which I will get into with our guest in just a moment. But basically, it can lead to permanent visual impairment, including blindness. The headlines that followed that update range from things like Ozempic blindness, what you need to know, to how weight loss jabs may cause blindness. But according to non-peer-reviewed recent research that looked at data from sales of GLP-1 drugs in Australia, despite the supply issues of recent years, around 500,000 units of GLP-1 medications were sold every month in 2024-25. That's 6 million units from May to April. Now, we presume from this data, seeing as the medication is taken monthly, that there are somewhere in the vicinity of 500,000 Aussies currently using it. So 500,000 Aussies might be slightly concerned about those headlines, thinking that the medication could make them go blind right now. So, as is our code of ethics here at the Solo Bureau, we had a doctor look over the TGA details and the data to see just how concerned we should be about this rare condition. Dr. Brad Mackay is a GP, medical commentator, and the author of Fake Medicine, exposing the wellness crazes, cons and quacks costing us our health. Dr. Brad, he has now moved to London, but he's very graciously joining us here. Welcome to the Solo Bureau.
Thank you. I still have an Australian accent, so that hasn't changed yet.
You haven't lost it yet. That is good. Okay, you are here today to talk us through something that made headlines very recently here in Australia, and that is under the TGA guidelines, there is an upped warning for people who are on GLP-1 medications due to it causing an eye issue. And I first of all would like you to explain to me what and I'm going to butcher this because I do not know how to pronounce it, what non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy is?
You did very well.
Thank you.
Yes. So this is an eye condition that is in the general public, so it can happen from time to time. But what we've seen is that some people who are using the GLP-1 receptor agonist medications, so some of them, that they've got a slightly increased risk again of having this rare eye disorder. So it's not happening across the board. It's still very rare, but there's enough cases here to put in a bit of a signal that the TGA is saying, well, we should make the general public a little bit more up to date and aware of this issue as time goes on. So what is non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy? So this, if you think of the back of your eye, so you have a lot of nerve cells or neurons that are going like a rope into the back of your eye where your optic disc is. And what happens in this condition is that there's a little bit of swelling goes on in the back of the eye. So some of the fibers of that rope become a little bit more inflamed and a little bit swollen. And then that in turn creates problems with blood flow to that area of your eye. So what can happen is people can get partial visual loss or even complete visual loss in that eye because the nerve cells where that rope is coming in, so the fibers of nerves into the back of the eye, that becomes damaged. And the issue that this is causing, and why this is so serious, is that there's no treatments for that. Once the blood vessels are gone and damaged, and once those nerve cells are gone and damaged, then this eye condition can be irreversible. So that's what's causing a lot of the flurry.
You mentioned that it's a rare condition and that GLP-1 use increases the risk slightly. So how much does it increase the risk by, and just how rare is this condition?
Yeah, so if we're looking at the general population, then it's estimated that that this particular medical condition can affect sort of 2 to 10 people in 100,000. So it's not a huge amount. Anything less than 1 in 2,000 is considered to be a rare condition. So 2 in 100,000, it's still considered to be a very rare condition. And if we're increasing the risk of it, then they estimate that the risk is increased by about 2.5 times. So it's still like very low numbers across the board, but enough to warrant a little bit of concern as we go forward, and a lot more people are using these medications. And what we're really sort of finding here is Australia is doing post-marketing surveying, so sort of seeing how people are behaving, what side effects people are getting as these drugs are rolled out around the community. This happens with any new drugs that come out. And so what they've found is just a handful of cases, so even about like 50 or so cases around Australia. So that's reported cases. And this is amongst what we assess to be millions of people using these drugs around Australia. So it's still very, very low numbers, but we're sort of seeing this popping up in different countries around the world.
What symptoms are we looking out for? Because, I mean, your vision can be affected by so many different things and in so many different ways. Is there a way in particular that we would more easily identify this particular condition over, say, aging eyesight or, perimenopausal eyesight conditions? Like, how do we tell that this might be an issue for us?
Yeah, so the main side effect that people are getting, or the main symptom that people are getting, is really just a sudden loss of vision. So sometimes that can be like one eye, more rarely both eyes. Sometimes it can just be a little bit of a loss of vision, so just part of your vision may be lost. And sometimes people don't notice that all that much until it sort of slowly progresses over time. But any visual changes, if you're like noticing that you're not seeing much in the periphery of your vision or in the central part of your vision, then you need to be getting your eyes checked. So that's sort of like a no-brainer for anyone. So any sudden visual loss, you're really needing to see an optometrist or an ophthalmologist really quickly.
If you do catch it super quickly, can you reverse it, or is it a case of it's case by case?
So if the vision has already changed, so if there's already been loss of vision, then generally that doesn't come back. That's the problem with this condition. But the whole thing is that if you are noticing subtle changes, you're not wanting it to get worse. So if you're continuing to use the medication and that's sort of like causing the problem to occur, then certainly you want to have a diagnosis as soon as possible and then stop that medication as soon as possible, so you don't get more progressive vision loss over time. So early diagnosis is key.
Now, this seems like a brand new thing for many people who might feel like they're hearing this for the very first time, but we have been aware of the link between GLP-1s and this condition for quite some time already, haven't we?
Yeah, so GPs and endocrinologists around Australia, like we've heard about this condition. It sort of was flagged with us maybe back in 2024. So it's been a couple of years of discussion about it and going, look, is this a problem? Is this not? We're getting a little bit of a signal in the noise. What do we do about it? And so it often takes a little bit of time to build up case numbers and work out what is the best approach. So the TGA has decided just recently that it's worthwhile putting this as a warning and making people more aware of it. But a lot of GPs like myself have already been talking to our patients and saying, look, if we're going to be starting this medication, then certainly there is a very rare eye complication. What we should be doing is making sure that your eyes are screened. So I'm making sure that my patients are going and having an eye check soon. So often people just let it go by for 5 or 10 years without actually seeing an optometrist. So it's good to get your eyes checked every 2 years anyway, and there's Medicare funding to have that done. So one of the things about this condition is that optometrists and ophthalmologists can look in the back of your eye and see if you have a disc at risk. So this is having a look at a smaller optic disc in the back of your eye with lots and lots of compacted nerve cells coming through it. So it's relatively common to have a smaller optic disc. If your optic disc is a normal size or slightly larger, then it doesn't really matter. So you're very, very unlikely to get this eye condition. So that's one way to decrease your anxiety about it. If you do have a disc at risk, if you do have that small disc with tight nerve fibers, then it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get this eye condition, but it means that you need to be a little bit more vigilant about it, and you need to be checking in with your ophthalmologist or your optometrist a little bit more regularly, just to make sure that there's no signs of swelling and to catch things early if you are taking one of these GLP-1 receptor agonists.
I think I found the only silver lining of being or having terrible eyesight is that for some of us, we're going to the optometrist every year anyway.
Exactly. So it's worthwhile like having that conversation with them and saying, look, I'm thinking about starting a GLP-1 receptor agonist, or I'm already taking it. Do I have a disc at risk? Do I have a small optic disc? And if there is a problem there, how often do you think I need to come back? So you may need to see your optometrist a little bit more regularly just to be on the safe side and to check things out. So there are ways around this. It's not doom and gloom. And one of the issues is that if people have rampant diabetes, if their diabetes is out of control, their sugar levels are really high, and that's what they're using these medications for, then there are eye problems that can develop from having high sugar levels with diabetic retinopathy. So that's another cause of blindness and visual loss from having sugars that are out of control. So it's sort of weighing up the pros and cons, because, there are a lot of benefits from these medications as well.
Dr. Brad, thank you for putting our minds at ease and telling us what to look out for. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
As Dr. Brad said, pay attention to your body. The TGA advice is if you or someone you care for is using one of the GLP-1 RA medicines listed above, as I mentioned previously, if any changes are noted, stop using the medicine and seek prompt medical attention. Thanks for spending time with the Solo Bureau today, team. Thank you to the amazing comments that I still see popping up on the show's Spotify and Apple charts. I am in final talks with 2 networks to monetize this show. I will keep you posted on what that's going to look like and who we'll be going with. Maybe I should even get one of those faceless men or women behind the scenes to come on the show. They can explain how this all works. Put them in the hot seat. What do you reckon? Until tomorrow, have a great rest of your hump day. I'll see you then.